Good evening, boys and girls. I'd like to welcome you to Storytime with Grandma Pat. And this evening we're going to have the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's always been a favorite of mine, and I hope it's a favorite of yours also. And this is Goldilocks. And these are the woods that she was riding through. And here we can see the three bears. There's Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. And that particular morning, Mama Bear fixed porridge. And Papa Bear tasted his porridge, and he said, "This porridge is just too hot. Let's go for a walk in the woods while our porridge cools." And so the three bears went for a walk in the woods. And here they are. They're out walking. And we can see the beautiful woods. And while they were out walking, Goldilocks, who was out riding her bike, she had ridden a little bit farther than she should have. She had gotten tired by now. And she saw the little house in the woods, and she decided to stop. And she got off her bike and she laid it on the ground, and she walked up to the house. And she just kind of peeked a little bit into the window. Let me see you peek a little. Peek a little bit into the window. And she didn't see anything. So then she decided to knock on the door. And she listened, but she didn't hear anything. So she knocked again. I want you to knock with me. Ready? And still she listened and didn't hear a sound. So she put her hand on the knob, and she turned the knob, and the door flew open, and Goldilocks walked inside. And the first thing that Goldilocks saw when she walked in was the table with 3 bowls of porridge. A big bowl, a medium-sized bowl of porridge, and a wee little bowl of porridge. And first she tasted the big bowl, and she said, "Oh, this is just too hot." And then she tasted the medium-sized bowl, and she said, "This is too cold." And then she tasted the wee bowl of oatmeal, and she said, "Oh, this is good. This is just right." And she ate it all up. And then she walked into the next room, and what did she see? She saw 3 chairs. A big chair, a medium-sized chair, and a wee little chair. And she sat in the big chair, and she started to read a book. And she said, "Oh, this is too hard." She got out of that chair, and she sat in the medium-sized chair. And there were pillows all around. And she just kind of squished down in the chair. And she said, "Oh, this is too soft. I don't like this chair." And then she sat in the little chair, and it broke all to pieces. And she fell right on the floor with the chair. And she was really tired by now, and she looked around the house again, and she walked up the stairs. And the first bed she saw was a big bed, and she laid on the big bed. And she said, "Oh, this is too hard." And then she got on the medium-sized bed, and she laid back, and all of the pillows covered her up, and she got up, and she said, "I don't like this. This is too soft." And then she saw the little bed, and she sat on the bed, and she laid her head back, and she pulled the cover up on her, and she said, "Oh, this is just right." And she fell fast asleep. And meanwhile, the 3 bears were out walking, and they had just finished their walk, and they had made it home, and they walked inside. First thing they saw was their bowls of porridge. And Papa Bear said, "Looks like somebody's been eating my porridge." And Mama Bear said, "Well, somebody's been eating my porridge." And Baby Bear said, "Well, somebody's been eating my porridge." And they ate it all up. And Baby Bear started to cry. Then they walked into the next room, and Papa Bear looked at his chair, and he said, "Somebody's been sitting in my chair." And somebody's been sitting in my chair and my pillows are all messed up. And then Baby Bear looked at his chair and he said, somebody's been sitting in my chair, and broke it all to pieces. And he cried a little bit more. And then they walked upstairs and Papa Bear said, well, somebody's been sitting and lying in my bed. And Mama Bear said, well, somebody's been lying in my bed too. And Baby Bear looked at his bed and he said, well, somebody's been lying in my bed, and there she is. And at that moment, Goldilocks opened her eyes. She saw the three bears staring at her, and it scared her so much she jumped up out of the bed. She ran down the stairs, she ran out the door, and she picked up her bike. She got on her bike and she rode all the way home. And when she got home, she told her mom, she said, Mommy, I went for a ride on my bike, and I went into the woods, and there was a house, and I got off my bike and I went inside and I ate some porridge, and I sat in a chair and broke it, and then I went upstairs and I laid down in a bed and I went fast asleep, and then three bears came and they were staring at me, and it scared me so much I rode my bike all the way home. And Goldilocks' mommy looked at her and she said, Goldilocks, do you ever go into anyone's house when they're not at home? And she said, no. And Mommy said, well, Goldilocks, do you ever eat anyone's food when they're not, that they don't give to you? And she said, no. And then she said, Goldilocks, do you go anywhere without your mommy or your daddy to take care of you? And she said, no. Well, Goldilocks, when you go to someone's house and you go into their house when they're not at home, that's called breaking and entering. And when you eat or take someone's food or anything that doesn't belong to you, that's called stealing. And that's very bad. And we never go anywhere without our mommy and daddy or our big sister or brother to take care of us. So you promise me that you will never do that again. And boys and girls, you have to remember that also. You don't take anything that doesn't belong to you, because that's stealing. You don't go into anyone's home without them asking you to come in, because that's breaking into their home. And you never go anywhere without your mommy and your daddy, because they're the ones that take care of you and keep you safe. And thank you for joining me this evening with Story Time with